Hello, and welcome back to Health Quest Podcast. I'm your host, Steve Langford. Thanks for joining me. I'm glad you're here. I have a very interesting topic for you today, a very important topic. We're going to be talking about vitamin K, specifically vitamin K2, and a specific form of vitamin K2 called MK7. And so this is another case of one of those trademark branded, clinically studied raw materials today when we talk about MK7 vitamin K2. My guest today is Dr. Ralph Holsworth.
Thank you, Steve. It's an honor, and I really appreciate this platform to share this new developing research with vitamin K2. There's three basic forms of vitamin K. We call them K1, K2, K3. That nomenclature only describes the source or how they're developed. So K1 being phytoquinolones, K2 being more microbial or bacterial fermentation type derived, and then vitamin K3 is by mammalian, by animals, sourced from that. And the medical benefits of MK7 are specifically vitamin K2 that comes from the natto fermentation process. We're still developing it, but it touches every facet of the human body, from the immune system, brain, bone, blood clotting, blood vessels, controlling and regulation of our blood pressure, heart, as far as maintaining the normal sinus rhythm, the mitochondria as well, the function of each of the powerhouses of all our cells, and then last, the skin. It allows that elasticity to occur and to bounce back after protective surfaces for our body.
Now, vitamin K2 is specifically different from vitamin K1. This is, I think, where some of the confusion starts to come in, because some people have been advised not to take vitamin K. Others may be advised to take vitamin K. And there may be distinctions between those two, which really is sometimes missed by the consumer. Can you explain the difference between the two?
The vitamin K1, again, phytoquinolones, or vitamin K that's derived from plants, we see this in all our salads, all our leafy greens. Not to bore you with the biochemistry, but it really explains the advantage of vitamin K2 is that the K1 from plants and foliage actually has a very short chain. And what I mean chemically, it has a very small handle. We eat and consume it. It goes to the liver, and that's pretty much where vitamin K1 stays. Does tremendous functions for the body in the liver. And I don't mean to minimize any of those at all. But MK7, or K2, has a longer tail, biochemical tail, if you will. And that's what gets swept up. We eat it, consume it, it goes to the liver, and then it takes a ride on all our fatty acids in our bloodstream. And that is where we see all these, what we call systemic or omnipresent. It's where vitamin K2 is able to go to all parts of the body.
I often try to make the case that drugs are not nutrients, nutrients are not drugs. So let's not confuse the two. Medicine treats diseases, nutrients nourish the body. It's the body that does the magic with the nutrients in natto and allows it to have an effect. It's not that there's something in natto that overpowers what the body might normally do. And so they are great adjuncts to our health. Give us a little overview of some of the science on MK7, the specific form of vitamin K2.
One of the things we see most common is the ability to regulate calcium in the body. We look at our bones. I look at the x-rays frequently, and a lot of times I see more calcium in their arteries than there are in their bones. And what I mean by that is we need vitamin K. It drives calcium traffic. It will extract the calcium in the body, where to go. And I always say I want to keep calcium in your bone and out of your arteries. And to do that, we give you sufficient amounts of vitamin K2, MK7, and that's anywhere up to 100 micrograms, 150 micrograms per day. Then we have the clinical and scientific research to support that we are going to prevent that inadvertent calcium deposition in your arteries.
Let me be a little specific here. Is this particularly beneficial then for women, older women who are perhaps prone to osteoporosis or maybe more at risk for cardiovascular issues as they age?
We could postpone the effects of osteoporosis or actually prevent them if we had adequate amounts of vitamin K2 circulating in their bloodstream.
Now, in that study, do I understand that you're talking about women who consumed natto as part of the diet and got their K2 from the foods that they ate?
Yes, that's exactly how they sourced it, and they were measuring the serum and vitamin K levels as well. And again, they were able to statistically show an inverse correlation. In other words, the more MK7 they had in their bloodstream, the less amounts of hip fractures those women experienced throughout their life.
Is it possible that this excess calcium, which isn't going into the bones apparently, then is left for the body to deal with in some way, and might that then contribute to calcium in the arteries?
Calcium, I just think of the smoke over the fire. It didn't create the fire, but it was always guilt by association. We see that in chronic inflammatory states, whether you have a Achilles tendon or maybe one of your chromium process in your shoulder from continual repetitive motion. Then we'll see those tendons and ligaments actually calcify. So a lot of chronic inflammatory states, as well as the cardiovascular, the body is trying to put the calcium away. Again, I don't blame the calcium in and of itself. I just think that during certain inflammatory processes, atherosclerosis, and then being deficient in the minoquinone 7, then we're going to see calcium sort of being in a lot of different places where it shouldn't be, i.e. the arteries, and it's not specifically going to be in the bone. And there's also other places in the brain. We talk about the importance of vitamin K2 up there, making sure calcium is appropriate there as well.
Well, that's an interesting connection there. Could you explain what maybe that issue is with calcium in the brain? Because that's often an area that those two aren't really connected, at least in the public consciousness. We think of calcium in bones. It's just now emerging with calcium in the arteries. Tell us about this connection between excess calcium in the brain.
Well, again, I think when we talk about the blood-brain barrier, if we have sufficient amounts of vitamin K in there, then we're going to be able to make sure that we don't have any inadvertent calcification. Almost every day when I am doing CT scans of my patients in the emergency room looking for an acute stroke, I will see other little lacunar infarcts or little small areas in their brain where they've suffered strokes, blood insufficiencies, and then I'll see calcium in those deposits. And we also know there's another compound called growth arrest specific gene 6 protein. I won't bore you with it, but it's called GAS6. That is, again, one of the other important areas looking at the brain in which we know in the prevention of dementia, if we have appropriate amounts of vitamin K2 minoquinone 7, then we can keep these proteins functioning appropriately and decrease the incidence of some of the more advanced dementias. So that's what's exciting. Some of the research done by Dr. Case Vermeer has actually shown reversal of calcification in patients who take adequate levels of minoquinone 7. Dietarily, I've seen this over the years increase. It was 100 micrograms per day and then 150 micrograms. But now we're realizing that it takes higher levels. Some of the new research is saying 200, 300 micrograms per day of pure minoquinone 7, and we're actually seeing the reversal of the atherosclerotic plaque.
You are the scientific advisor for Vesta, the company that makes this unique MK7. So you have a very close connection with the people that make this unique raw material. I've referred to this many times in my interviews over the past, but I'd like to get your take on it as well. As a researcher, how important is it to you to have these standardized raw materials to work with?
It's very significant because, as I tell the manufacturers of these products, I have to do my own third-party testing of these materials, is that many times I am taking people off medications, which is a good thing, but I also have to make sure I'm bridging them over to a product that I know is dependable, not only in quality, but standardization. So I take it very seriously as I would prescribing a medication, because I depend on the therapeutic attributes of that product. It is an integral part, sometimes the only therapeutic modality for patients with certain conditions. I can't use drugs on them, and I have to solely rely on natural products of the highest quality and standardization for their treatment.
Well, I think sometimes people think we just say that because we favor a particular company. No, it's we favor a particular company because they do things right. Thank you to Vesta for creating these innovative products that are scientifically validated. They're pure products, non-GMO, kosher certified. So I know they set a very high standard, and I know that that's the kind of companies that you work with. So it's a chain of sharing this very important information. I'm glad to be a part of it. I thank you for being a part of our podcast.
Well, thank you, Steve.
Until next time, I wish you the best. Take care. Bye-bye.
You bet.